The Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa has written to Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. He's the chairman of the Judicial Services Commission. It's regarding what it refers to as the legality of the current JSC interviews. Pabasa is of the view that the interviews are proceeding without the true and legitimate representatives of the advocate's profession. Senior counsel Dali Mpofu is a representative of Pabasa. He joins us tonight. Advocate Mpofu, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. So this is an issue that you've been raising for a couple of years now, but I think for the benefit of the audience and myself, just explain to us what exactly is the problem.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, Kathy. It's actually quite a simple issue which should not have been allowed to escalate to the current levels of agitation. You would know that the composition of the Judicial Service Commission is prescribed in the Constitution. Now, that shows you how important that composition is, because there's a specified formula. It's one of the few bodies where the Constitution actually prescribes there's going to be 2 of these and 3 of these or 5 of these and so on. And so that body, because of its importance, is composed of, broadly speaking, members of parliament, as we all know. They come as a block, but in proportion to the size in parliament. And then the, let's call it the non-political side of the composition is then representatives of the attorneys profession, representatives of the advocates profession, representatives of academics, legal academics at that, and appointees of the president. And then, of course, you've got the judges and the minister. So that's how the body is prescribed. This dispute is currently specifically about Section 178(1)(e), which deals with the composition of the representation of the advocates. And that section is very simple. It's not complicated at all. It says that there must be 2 representatives of the advocates, of practicing advocates, representing that profession as a whole. And what has then happened is that since the advent of alternative associations such as Pabasa, we have been arguing that it cannot be that it's business as usual, that the General Council of the Bar, the GCB, which is the old traditional structure that has been there for more than 100 years, represents the advocates profession as a whole. It obviously doesn't, because most of the people who are outside of that body would have deliberately, exercising their freedom of association, decided to affiliate elsewhere. And it's a matter that is that simple. And therefore, the president, the minister, and the chief justice, whom we have engaged on this over the past 4 years, have been quite sympathetic to that argument, because it's obviously correct. But the stumbling block has been the GCB itself. We've had engagements, as I say, for the past 4 years on this. And quite frankly, this is not something that should have taken 4 years or even 4 weeks. I mean, for lawyers of the caliber that we're talking about on all sides, this is a matter that could have been thrashed out in a matter of a day or 2. But for the past 4 years, there's been dragging of feet and reluctance to come to the party. On the part, obviously, because the GCB holds the seats now. So our view now is that they've been deliberately dragging the matter to hog those seats over this period. And the last straw was a couple of months ago. We then said, look, let's resolve this matter before the next sitting of the JSC, which is currently now in October. And then they just failed to pitch up for meetings and that kind of dragging of it. So we're now feeling that the matter needs to be escalated, unfortunately, to the public domain, but also to possibly to the courts.
Let's talk about the kind of relationship that an entity like Pabasa, the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa, has with the General Counsel of the Bar. And the reason I'm asking this question, right, is that if it's such a simplistic matter, and from the statement that you've issued through the Office of the Minister, there was very much a platform that was created to initiate conversation to take place between the two. But it doesn't seem to me that those conversations should only be happening through facilitation necessarily of only the minister. You're all advocates. You understand how the law of the country works. Is it difficult for these associations to get together, and why? What is the tension between the two?
Well, the relationship, there's nothing wrong with the relationship as such. I mean, we cooperate with them on various issues. We even have, I think both organizations even allow for dual membership. So there are people who are members of both the Pabasa and GCB. So that shows you that there's really no serious tensions or animosity. And this is why we are puzzled by the attitude. But obviously the attitude is informed by the fact that they are holding the seats. I'm quite sure if the shoe was on the other foot, if we were holding the seats and they wanted to be included, they wouldn't be dragging their feet. But I suppose the incumbency makes them to relax and not to see this as a matter of priority. And it's a shame that it had to come to this, really, because as you correctly say, we thought this was going to be, resolved in an adult way, and it's obvious what should happen here, Kathy.
So,
you can't have in 2023 the politics of exclusion, because what it really means is that a significant number of people in the advocates profession are excluded and not represented in the JSE. And that might have serious implications on the legality of what is taking place there and all sorts of decisions that are taken.
And you're bringing me to my next point. Because all of you are advocates, senior counsel, it's not lost on me that there's a reason you have chosen to word your statement in the way that you have, talking and pointing specifically to the legality of the process that is underway. And it would, of course, suggest that if this matter is not reviewed, then you could very well challenge even the interviews that have been held of the JSE over the last week or so. Going forward, what's the plan?
Indeed, so Kathy, and it will be regrettable, but think about it. If you're talking about the composition of a body, let's talk about a board of directors. If a board of directors, it says, or a university council, I think is a better example, where you say you must have students, you must have the workers, you must have academics, and so on. Once it sits, that university council, without one of those constituencies, then it's not properly constituted, legally speaking, and therefore its decisions can be questioned. And you're quite right, the decisions of the JSE are therefore now made vulnerable to such an attack, not just by us, but by other people. Remember that that body takes very serious decisions, impeachment of judges and all sorts of things. And those judges, those decisions might be challenged not by us, by other people who say, look, we can't be subjected to a body that was improperly constituted, or an aggrieved interviewee who who's not appointed can say, well, the decision not to appoint me was improperly taken. And this is exactly what we were trying to avoid, hoping this will be resolved properly behind closed doors and in a cordial way. But obviously we can't wait. 4 years is a long time, and now the issue has to be resolved one way or the other. We are quite adamant that the next sitting, in April must occur with this matter behind all of us.
So, Advocate Mpofu, do you get a sense at all, and I'm trying here to really, phrase my next question quite cautiously. Do you get a sense of at all that the decisions around this have anything to do with a perceived legitimacy or even credibility of Pabasa?
No, it can be. I mean, I doubt if that is what it is. I don't think that anybody can doubt. I mean, the establishment of a body like Pabasa was a milestone in the history of the legal profession, and everyone accepted it. It was the Chief Justice himself at the time, and other players in the field, the minister, everyone recognizes Pabasa correctly so, because it's a progressive Pan-Africanist Bar Association of South Africa, which has hundreds of members and which obviously brings something new to the table than the old guard or the old regime, so to speak. But for us to be represented by people that we don't want to represent us is akin to being forced to be a citizen of a homeland or something like that, when you don't want to be. So the whole notion of representing someone is that they must want to be represented by you. So obviously those people, and we're not attacking the representatives that are there, or we're not saying that they've done anything wrong. We're simply saying they don't represent us.
So just to be clear, Advocate Mpofu, my understanding of what you're saying is that according to the seat allocation, yes, there's very much a role for there to be a representative of the General Council of the Bar, but they're not the only ones then who should be in those positions. That you're saying that the second seat should go to somebody else who represents, let's say, an organization like Pabasa. You're not saying that none of their members should be present at the JC at all?
No, absolutely not. We can't say that because they are also, I mean, otherwise we would be putting them in the same position that we're in now. We're saying nobody must be excluded. And we're saying these people, the Constitution simply says two members of the JC must represent the advocates profession as a whole. As we're sitting now, those people do not represent the advocates profession as a whole, and they certainly don't represent us. And therefore, that is our complaint. It's a very simple issue. That if they claim to be representing us as well, then we will dispute that strongly. They obviously don't.
Advocate Mpofu, very briefly, what happens beyond this complaint? You've registered it again publicly. You've written a letter to the Chief Justice. What next?
Well, we're going to take whatever steps are necessary to make sure that by the next sitting in April, this matter has been resolved by whatever means necessary. But let me just say this, Kathy, before you move on, just to give an example so that people can understand this. The Constitution also says, for example, that there should be one legal academic sitting there. And the universities were able, there are so many universities in this country, but they were able to find a formula by which to send that representative. Same with judges president. The Constitution says there must be one judge president. So all the judges president in the country sit together and they find which one is going to represent them. So it's quite a simple process. The attorneys have done the same thing, so the advocates must do in the same way as well.
All right, Advocate Dali Mpofu, we'll leave it there for now. He, of course, representing Pabasa.